Chapter 4, Understanding Laws. You may be familiar with some laws such as those that specify the age of marriage, the age at which a person can vote, and perhaps even the laws dealing with buying and selling of property. We now know that the parliament is in charge of making laws. Do these laws apply to everyone? How do new laws come into being? Could there be laws that are unpopular or controversial? What should we as citizens do under such circumstances? The above is a clear case of the violation of laws as you read in Unit 1. Members of the Constituent Assembly were agreed there should be no arbitrary exercise of power in independent India. They therefore instituted several provisions in the Constitution that would stabilize the rule of law. The most important of these was that all persons in independent India are equal before the law. The law cannot discriminate between persons on the basis of their religion, caste, or gender. What the rule of laws means is that all laws apply equally to all citizens of the country and no one can be above the law. Neither a government official nor a wealthy person nor even the president of country is above the law. Any crime or violation of law has a specific punishment as well as a process through which the guilt of the person has to be stabilized. But was it always like this? In ancient India, there are innumerable and often overlapping local laws. Different communities enjoyed different degrees of autonomy in administering these laws among their own. In some cases, the punishment that two persons receive for the same crime vary depending on their caste background, with lower castes being more harshly penalized. This slowly began to change as this system of law began to further evolve during the colonial period. It is often believed that it was the British colonialists who introduced the rule of law in India. Historians have disputed this claim on several grounds, two of which include first that colonial law was arbitrary and second that the Indian nationalists played a prominent role in the development of the legal sphere in British India. One example of the arbitrariness that continued to exist as part of British law in the Sedition Act of 1870, the idea of sedition was very broadly understood. Within this act, any person protesting or criticizing the British government could be arrested without dual trial. Indian nationalists began protesting and criticizing this arbitrary use of authority by the British. They also began fighting for greater equality and wanted to change the idea of law from a set of rules that they were forced to obey to law as including ideas of justice. By the end of the 19th century, the Indian legal profession also began emerging and demanded respect in colonial courts. They began to use law to defend the legal rights of Indians. Indian judges also began to play a greater role in making decisions. Therefore, there were several ways in which India played a major role in the evolution of the rule of law during the colonial period. With the adoption of the Constitution, this document served as the foundation on which our representatives began making laws for the country. Every year, our representatives pass several new laws as well as amend existing ones. In your class 6 book, you read about the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005. According to this new law, sons, daughters, and their mothers can get an equal share of family property. Similarly, new laws have been enacted to control pollution and provide employment. How do people come to think and propose that a new law is necessary? You will read more about this in the next section. How do new laws comes about? The parliament has an important role in making laws. There are many ways through which this takes place and it is often different groups in society that raise the need for a particular law. An important role of parliament is to be sensitive to the problems faced by people. Let us read the following story to understand how issue of domestic violence was brought to the attention of parliament and the process adopted for this issue to become law. As the above example shows, the role of citizens is crucial in helping parliament frame different concerns that people might have into laws. From stabilizing the need for a new law to its being passed, at every stage of the process, the voice of the citizens is a crucial element. This voice can be heard through TV reports, newspapers, editorials, radio broadcasts, local meetings, all of which help in making the work that Parliament does more accessible and transparent to the people. Unpopular and controversial laws. Let us now look at the situation where the parliament passes laws that turn out to be very unpopular. Sometimes a law can be constitutionally valid and hence legal, but it can continue to be unpopular and unacceptable to people because they feel that the intention behind it is unfair and harmful. Hence, people might criticize this law, hold public meetings, write about it in newspapers, report on TV news channels, etc. In a democracy like ours, citizens can express their unwillingness to accept repressive laws framed by the parliament. When a large number of people begin to feel that a wrong law has been passed, then there is pressure on the parliament to change this. For example, various municipal laws on the use of space within municipal limits often make hawking and street vending illegal. No one will dispute the necessity for some rules to keep the public space open so that people can walk on the pavements easily. However, one also cannot deny that hawkers and vendors provide essential services cheaply and efficiently to the millions living in a large city. This is their means of livelihood. Hence, if the law favors one group and disregards the other, it will be controversial and lead to conflict. People who think that the law is not fair can approach the court to decide on the issue. The court has the power to modify or cancel laws if it finds that they don't adhere to the constitution. Do you remember the photo essay on the women's movement in the class 7th book? The photo there showed the different ways in which citizens can protest, campaign, and show solidarity. The following pictures point to the other ways in which people protest unjust laws. We need to remember that our role as citizens does not end with electing our representatives. Rather, it is then that we begin to use newspapers and the media to carefully chart the work that is being done by our MPs and criticize their actions when we feel it is required. Thus, what we should bear in mind is that it is the extent, involvement, and enthusiasm of the people that helps Parliament perform its representative functions properly.